We are all aware of the stories of now famous LGBT plus people who were remarkable in their own field but lived too early to enjoy the progress we have now achieved. Alan Turing, mentioned earlier, springs to mind. In many senses, his story is now legend. The understanding of the role he played in protecting this country is universal. That he happened to be gay shouldn't have mattered. But despite his service, he was chemically castrated and suffered for the rest of his life. It was absolutely correct that the last Labour government apologised and that Turing was pardoned in August 2014. Madam Deputy Speaker, LGBT plus History Month is often marked and reflected through stories, and today I want to share just some of my story. Growing up in a mining town in the 80s, the difference in the rights I now have compared to then is striking. As a lesbian woman, I have spent my adult life fighting for LGBT plus rights. It was when fighting for these rights that I first visited this place. After many years of debate and setbacks, in June 1998, this House voted to equalise the age of consent between heterosexual and gay men. As an active member of Unison City of Edinburgh lesbian and gay self-organised group, we had been campaigning for many years to end this discrimination. The Unison Archive reminded me that our branch wrote letters to all Scottish MPs and MPs who had a link with our union, 320 in total. On the day of the vote, 2 of us came to this place to lobby MPs in person to vote for this historic change. Madam Deputy Speaker, the next big fight for our rights that I was actively involved in was the repeal of Section 28 or 2A in Scotland. As someone who worked in local government and who had a same-sex partner with children, I saw the damage that Section 2A had every single day. The Act meant that teachers and youth workers couldn't provide support for children with same-sex partners or LGBT plus young people. It resulted in many public sector workers feeling they couldn't come out in their own workplace, and colleagues, particularly who worked in education, and the law essentially said that households like the one I lived in were just wrong. When the Scottish Executive announced that they would repeal Section 2A, there was a considerable and at times vile campaign against its removal, much of this financed by Brian Souter. Brian Souter wanted to bankroll a private referendum and campaign for people to vote no. The campaign had billboards across Scotland opposing the repeal. One of these billboards was on Ferry Road, one of the main bus routes through my home in Edinburgh North and Leith constituency. I'll never forget having to take David and Zoe on a bus to school, passing the sign that said our family wasn't a real family. I can't put into words the anger I felt because of the worry it created for me and the kids and their mum. Thankfully, the people of Scotland rejected the buying of democracy by Brian Souter, and the referendum never happened. A few years ago, the Scottish Trade Union Congress commissioned a book celebrating 125 years of trade union successes in Scotland, and as a contributor, I wrote about the struggle. In the book, I said an overarching worry for the general public was that Souter was trying to bankroll this referendum and campaign. People didn't want private rich people to be able to buy democracy. I know my constituents still hold this view. The following decade and a half brought significant improvements in the rights of LGBT plus people in Scotland and across the UK. One of those rights I look forward to reflecting on in a few weeks' time when I celebrate my first wedding anniversary with my wife. In closing, Madam Deputy Speaker, the struggle for LGBT rights has been fought in workplaces, in our communities, within our families and across this House for decades. We have had many successes, but sadly still today there are people living in fear of their lives because they love someone of the same sex. We must in this place continue to fight to ensure that everyone is able to love who they wish, regardless of where they are born, and my hope is that very soon people across the world will have the freedoms that I enjoy here in the UK today. Thank you.
Yeah.